Hi there, my name's Nate Jarrell. Welcome to the next installment of our lick breakdown series. And today we're going to be looking at a lick inspired by the great saxophonist Wayne Shorter. As many of you probably know, we unfortunately lost Wayne Shorter. He passed away a couple weeks back. And I'm a high school music teacher, and the week he passed away, I was looking for tunes to give to my jazz bands at my school, Wayne Shorter tunes. And in the process was listening to some stuff that I hadn't checked out in a while. And one of those things was from Wayne's earlier part of his career when he was playing with Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers from a really great record called Caravan. I'll link to that below. And was giving a listen to his tune, This Is for Albert. It's a really great composition from that album. He is absolutely one of my favorite jazz composers and just musicians in general. His whole kind of philosophy on art and creating and music, combined with what he did to push harmony into whole new territories during his time with the Miles Davis Quintet, as well as with Weather Report, and then his quartet that he's been playing with for the last 20 years or so, and all the other things that he did in between his great albums, Speak No Evil, all those incredible records. Are just if you haven't spent time checking that music out, you really need to. It's amazing stuff. But in this particular solo from This Is for Albert, there was something that jumped out at me. And like I'm trying to do with all of these videos, the idea here is to look at the concept, take that, be able to internalize it, and then turn it into something of your own. So instead of looking specifically at exactly what he played in that solo, what I did here is I took the concept he used and built my own line out of it. And so let's jump right in and take a look at what's going on over this particular 2-5-1 and how he's playing something a little bit different over the 2 chord than you might normally expect. Okay, so in this solo for This Is for Albert, the part that really kind of the whole solo is fantastic, but there's this one line that jumped out at me as I was listening to it and taking a look at a transcription of it. And so over a 2-5-1 in G, over the 2 chord, he plays this really fast flurry of 16th notes. And the first thing that he plays on it is this set of two 16th note quintuplets where he runs straight up an E altered dominant scale over the A minor chord, which gives us some really interesting sounds and is not how you would typically necessarily approach playing over the 2 chord in a 2-5-1. So what he's in effect doing is implying the 5 of the 2 chord, because E7 would be the 5 of an A minor chord. And so he is superimposing that over the A minor chord and playing altered dominant over it. Okay, so his line goes right up the scale, and what he does there is this is where he plays those 16th note quintuplets. So I'll do this a little slower than in the recording, but over the A minor chord, he plays this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's going by really quickly, but that's right up an E altered dominant scale. And if you're not familiar with altered dominant, this is not really going to be a lesson on that, but just to break down what's happening with the scale before we look at the lick that I created based on the same concept, your altered dominant scale gives you the root third and flat 7 of your dominant chord that you're playing over. It also gives you all the possible alterations. So you get a flat 9, a sharp 9, a flat 5, and a sharp 5. Okay, so it's a really useful sound for building tension over a dominant chord. And that's where you're typically going to see it. But in this setting, Wayne puts it over the 2 chord. He plays the E7, which is going to be the 5 of the 2 chord, and plays that altered dominant scale. Okay, so let's take a look at why that works first. Then we'll take a look at the actual line and then the rest of the lick through the 2-5-1. Okay, now let's break down how all these notes in the E altered dominant scale are going to work and relate to what's going on with the A minor chord they're being played over. So the very first note in the scale, okay, E, is going to give us the 5th of the A minor chord. Okay, so right inside the chord, nothing crazy going on there. Okay, then we move to the F. Now an F is not in the key that we are in. We're playing a 2-5-1 in G, so that would be an F sharp in the key. But that's not a foreign sound over a minor chord. That's the flat 6, okay? And that's what's gonna be, you know, is gonna show up in our natural minor scale, or our Aeolian if we're thinking modally, okay? So while that's not, in the key that we are in, that's not something that's gonna be that strange of a sound against a minor chord, okay? And there's a lot of context there for that. From there, we have the G, okay? Another chord tone. That's the flat 7. So that's still just right inside our A minor chord. Okay, now this next note is where we're going to hear a little bit of an interesting departure from what we would normally hear, especially over a 2 chord. We get the G sharp. Okay, the G sharp is a major 7. Now, again, not what we would normally hear in the context of a 2-5-1 in G, but not completely foreign to a minor chord, right? We hear minor major 7 chords all the time. We hear that melodic minor sound that's got the major 7 in it. And also it's a common passing tone in bebop lines over a minor chord. Okay, so again, interesting choice, interesting sound, not what you'd normally hear over the 2 chord, but not without context either. Okay. Next one we get is the B flat. Okay, now this is maybe the most kind of outside of the norm sound over this chord to my ear, but still also not completely foreign to a minor sound. This against the A minor chord is going to be a flat 9, okay, which we usually associate more with playing that over a dominant chord. But if we're thinking in terms of scales that are minor based that would have that note in them, A Phrygian would have that B flat in there, okay? So again, not the norm for the 2 chord, not completely foreign to something that we could use over a minor chord in the right context. And this is gonna be a little bit outside, it's gonna perk up our ear a little bit, but we're moving through it pretty quickly, and it's gonna be a really interesting sound over this chord, okay? From there, we get a C. Just another chord tone, right? So we're playing the third of the A minor chord. So we're right inside the chord here, okay? So nothing really strange going on there. And then last note in the scale is a D. That's the 11, okay? So that also actually would be totally in context for a minor or a 2-5-1 in the key of G over the 2 chord. That's just the 11. We would hear that, very commonly added to our chord if we're comping or in our line. And so while this is a really interesting choice, it's not that far outside of things that our ear might be used to hearing over a minor chord, okay? So here's the whole line a little bit slower that I wrote based on this idea of superimposing the 5 chord with an altered sound over the 2 chord. The 5, let me just reiterate to you, it's the 5 of the 2 chord, not the 5 of the key that we're in. So this is E7. Okay. Now, from there, the one note that I put in the line when we get to the end of the line, that wasn't the whole line. We're going to hear this note too, okay? So I just want to throw in there that when I get to that part, okay, that's not part of the altered dominant scale, and it's actually a C sharp. It's a major third if we think of it against the A chord. So that would be an odd choice, except what I'm using it for is a pivot point that's going to drop me into the root of the 5 chord in the next bar, the D7. Okay, so the whole line sounds like this. And then that's gonna start me out playing on the D7 chord. On the D7 chord, I also play altered dominant, but this time altered dominant of D7. So I'm playing D altered dominant there. And then when we get to the 1 chord, and you'll hear all this again in context in just a minute. We'll play the whole lick again in context with the harmony behind it. But what I'm doing there is playing Lydian. Okay, so I'm playing over the G major 7. Instead of just playing just regular G major, I'm gonna play some C sharps in there. So you're gonna hear some lines like that. Okay, so we get third, sharp 11, 7, then sharp 11, 5, root. And then right here, and we'll see who can catch it in the comments maybe below, because this all came from an idea from Wayne Shorter, I built in a little quote from one of my favorite Wayne Shorter tunes. So it goes. Okay, so if you know what that tune is, comment below and let us know where that came from. We'll see who gets that first. But one more time, here is the whole lick in context. The idea that I came up with based on hearing Wayne Shorter's use of subbing the 5 of the 2 chord with an altered sound in this 2-5-1. Hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe, check out the other videos on the channel. I'll be adding more in the weeks to come. And here we go with the lick.